Carnegie, the millionaire philanthropist, offered to buy the freedom of the Philippines with a personal check for $20 million. The anti-imperialists were accused of giving aid and comfort to the enemy. It was stated that without their support, resistance in the Philippines would have collapsed long ago. But at the height of their strength, the anti-imperialists numbered 500,000 members and could not be completely ignored. In their thinking, American imperialism was in fundamental contradiction to democracy. It was now 1900 and an election year. The war of annexation in the Philippines became a major election issue. But McKinley, the incumbent president whose only electioneering took place on his own doorstep, was re-elected. McKinley sent a commission to the Philippines, which reported back that the Filipino insurrection would soon be completely suppressed. Shortly after the findings of the commission were published, it was announced that public lands in the Philippines would be sold to Americans for development. Americans thought that the rebellion would only be finally broken with the death or capture of General Aguinaldo, the elusive guerrilla leader. He was finally captured by a daring trick. General Funston, the man who had captured Aguinaldo, returned home to defend American conduct of the war. The natives violated all the rules of civilized warfare, and they knew perfectly well what they were violating. Yet in return, our men were wonderfully kind and considerate to the wounded and prisoners. This was the most humane war against a half-civilized people that the world ever saw. The stories of brutality on the part of American soldiers were simply lies. In the Senate, Senator Hoare of Massachusetts waged a lonely war against the hawkish majority. You have wasted 600 millions of treasure. You have sacrificed nearly 10,000 American lives, the flower of our youth. You have devastated provinces. You have slain uncounted thousands of the people you desire to benefit. On the other side, Senator Beveridge argued passionately against withdrawal. To halt before every guerrilla band opposing us is exterminated will prolong hostilities and leave alive the seeds of perpetual insurrection. To treat it all is to admit that we are wrong. It has been charged that our conduct of the war has been cruel. Senators, it has been the reverse. Within our lines, the Filipinos may plow and sow and reap and go about the affairs of peace and absolute liberty. And yet all this kindness was not understood. Senators must remember that we are not dealing with Americans or Europeans. We are dealing with Orientals. The news that 60,000 American soldiers have crossed the Pacific, that if necessary, the American Congress will make it 100,000 or 200,000 men, will do more to end the war than the soldiers themselves. But the report that we even discuss the withdrawal of a single soldier at the present time will blow into a flame once more the fires our soldiers' blood has almost quenched. Mr. President, reluctantly and only from a sense of duty am I forced to say that American opposition to the war has been the chief factor in prolonging it. The Filipinos believe that they have only to fight, harass, retreat, break up into small parties as they are doing now, but by all means hold out until the next presidential election and our forces will be withdrawn. All this has aided the enemy more than climate, arms, and battle. I have seen our mangled boys in the field. I've stood on the firing line and beheld our dead soldiers, their faces to the pitiless southern sky. And in sorrow rather than in anger, I say to those whose voices in America have cheered those misguided natives on to shoot our soldiers down, that the blood of those dead and wounded boys of ours is on their hands. While the arguing went on in America, it was the peasant population of the Philippines that got hurt most, caught in the crossfire. Reports began to come out of the Philippines of the use of torture on captured Filipino prisoners and suspects. The Army at first denied the use of torture, then attributed it to the Macabebe scouts, Filipinos who had fought for the Spanish against their own people and now served the Americans. But through a senatorial inquiry, it came out that the use of torture was systematic and practiced widely by American troops. A former Army surgeon who testified before the senatorial investigation insisted that the only chance of pacification lies in an inundation of human blood that will purge the islands of treachery. It was widely felt by Americans in the Philippines and at home that the Filipinos were inferior to the Anglo-Saxons, and therefore their lives were of small account. American soldiers gave them the nickname of Gugus. A San Francisco paper wrote, "We do not want the Filipinos. We want the Philippines. Filipinos don't care to make money, and they occupy land which might be utilized to much better advantage by Americans. Therefore, the more of them killed, the better. It seems harsh that they must yield before the superior race." President McKinley termed the business of pacifying the Filipinos and subjecting them to rule by the United States benevolent assimilation. 3 years into the Philippines pacification program, President McKinley himself suffered the same kind of benevolent assimilation at the hands of an assassin.